Morning, everyone. Welcome to the July Aeronautics Commission meeting. This is always fun to have in your hand. We are in compliance with the Open Meeting Act. We have filed a meeting notice and the agenda has been posted. Calling to order here, and we're going to record members present. Jamie, call the roll.
Chairman Potter. Vice Chair Amos.
Here.
Secretary Putnam.
Here.
Commissioner Hunter.
Here.
Commissioner Ray.
Here.
Commissioner Ritz. Here. Commissioner Conway.
Here.
Great, thank you. I need a motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Vice Chair Amos.
Yes, affirmative.
Secretary Putnam.
Aye.
Commissioner Hunter.
Aye.
Commissioner Ray.
Aye.
Commissioner Ritz.
Aye.
Commissioner Conway.
Aye.
Thank you. Item 4 is position approval. Mr. Director.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman, Commissioners. By the way, I wanted to, Chairman Potter regrets his inability to be here today. It's due to a passing of one of his key staff of his company, and that kind of was first loyalty, so I certainly understand that, but he'll be with us next time, he says. This is necessitated by the fact that over time, more and more, as I think most of you know, Michelle is my executive assistant, but more and more over the years, as I think we'll blame Dale Williams for that, she became much more grants administrator to the point that she really does need to go full-time into that position, and I, as well as Deputy Director Artie, still need the assistance of an executive assistant. So I would ask for your approval to fill this position on a full-time basis.
Any comments or I need a,
I'd move for approval to do that.
okay, second. Call the roll.
Vice Chair Amos.
Yes.
Secretary Putnam.
Aye.
Commissioner Hunter.
Aye.
Commissioner Ray.
Aye.
Commissioner Ritz.
Aye.
Commissioner Conway.
Aye.
Great. Item 5, Vic.
Yes, a little different. Jennifer Bishop, who is currently in this position, Aviation Program Manager, has submitted her resignation effective at the end of the month. Jennifer is returning to apparently a long-held dream, and it is what life's all about, to be a nurse. So she's going to be returning to the School of Nursing to get her nursing degree. And we need to fill this soon-to-be vacancy, and we need to do it as quickly as possible. So I would ask for your approval on that. And I'm sorry Jennifer's not here today. She had an appointment, but we certainly appreciate her years of service to the state, to the aviation community, and to the commission. Ask for your approval.
Move approval. Second.
Call the roll.
Vice Chair Amos.
Aye.
Secretary Putnam.
Aye.
Commissioner Hunter.
Aye.
Commissioner Ray.
Aye.
Commissioner Ritz.
Aye.
Commissioner Conway.
Aye.
Great. Item 6, the Director's report.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. First, I'd like to recognize, thank you, Representative Crosswhite-Hayter, for being here today. Thank you very much. Appreciate your attendance. And I'll get through this. I know that Commissioner Amos is worried about my report because it looks long. It's half the alphabet, but you're going to be amazed. So, as you all know, I am on the U.S. Contract Tower Association Policy Board. Usually it's June, we have a workshop and policy board meeting in Washington. I attended that. It was moved to mid-May this year. Attended that and also saw several members of our delegation, including Senator Inhofe, and did that. We've done this once before. Walt Strong and Gary Johnson and I used to go around, and so now I'm repeating that with his successors, with Lance Lampkin and Paul Pregel, and we saw several members of our delegation and their staff about the issues relating to aviation, airports, airport improvement program, contract towers, of course, and those were productive meetings, and it was a productive workshop in Washington. I know that's hard to believe, right? In Washington, something, but it was productive. The FAA congressional staff briefing, which takes place at the Monroney Aeronautical Center annually now. This is something we used to do, and it was kind of reversed. We invited FAA, but for the last several years, very thankful to our FAA brethren at FAA Southwest and at the Monroney Aeronautical Center. That has been hosted by Monroney for the congressional delegation. And you wouldn't believe it, Commissioner Amos, but in 10 to 15 minutes, I can cover Oklahoma aviation and all the great things the Oklahoma Aeronautics Commission does and all the great things that are going on about aviation and aerospace in Oklahoma. I can do that in 12 minutes. That was a record last time. Aerospace is the subject of the day, it seems. It seems to be very popular. Every fall, Leadership Oklahoma has a fall forum dedicated or focused upon a subject or topic. This year, it has chosen aerospace to be that subject. No question about it that our economic impact study is resonating around the state with policymakers as well as the general public and leaders across the state. So we have been helping with Leadership Oklahoma to make sure that that is a good forum, and that will take place on, help me here, folks. I know it's right at the end of September. October 30th? October 30th. Yeah, the meeting was May 30th, but the actual forum will be October 30th. I know some of you have been in Leadership Oklahoma, so it will be open, of course, to alumni and current members as well as the general public. Haven't decided yet, I think, on a location, but that will be forthcoming. The first time that I can remember in my 34 years in state government that the Governor Stitt had a governor's agency leadership retreat with all state agency directors. So there was probably close to 200 agency directors out at the Metro Tech. Thank you, Tim Fannin, out at their main campus on June the 3rd. It was kind of outlining the governor's vision for state government for the state of Oklahoma and the role that he expected agencies to play and how we would discharge our responsibilities and duties. And then in the afternoon, we met with our cabinet secretary to do some strategic planning. There's been a number of firsts, I'd have to say, for this administration of Governor Stitt. I can't remember all state employees getting an email from the governor, give me your ideas about how we can do this better. That was a first. We turned in several. I know I turned in one that I think actually has gotten some traction. So he's done a couple of things like that, and he is going around. I don't know if it's unannounced or I'll tell everyone to make sure and remove your lunch plate from your desk, but because he drops in on agencies just to see how it's going with his fellow employees. So it's a good thing. It really does. It has an impact, and that was we're going to be following up on that with some more strategic planning with our cabinet secretary, Secretary Gatz. We've already done that. Grayson has submitted some long-range strategic goals, and we'll keep you apprised of that. The Intrust Bank, you'll remember last fall we had an aerospace forum that the Intrust Bank was the main sponsor of. They're going to do that again this year that will focus on the aerospace industry, recent developments, really what's going on, what's forthcoming in the upcoming legislative session. That will be this fall. Michelle, do you know the date of that? I think that's at the end of September. They're real close. We'll get, I think the date has been announced. We should be putting, but we'll get you that date. Sorry it's not on there. The FAA, we have an annual Southwest Division, Southwest Region Airports Conference. That was in early June, and several of us, myself, several from the Airports Division went to that meeting. It was a productive two-day meeting in Fort Worth, and of course, it kind of underscores our critical partnership between us, the FAA Airports Division primarily, and our local airport sponsors. AAA Annual Conference, I have never attended this. In my 17 years of being director, I've been encouraged over and again many times by a number of airport managers. This year I did go. I'd say it was valuable. It was somewhat enlightening. There were a number of general aviation sessions, which I didn't see, and some commercial airport sessions, which is always, I think it's good for me to get exposure to that. see what issues they're dealing with. Several of our airport managers went, Paul Priegel, Lance Lampkin, Mark Cranenberg. There were quite a few from Oklahoma in attendance at the AAAE Annual Conference, the American Association of Airport Executives. Very pleased about the next item, and I'm going to elaborate a little bit more upon that in the legislative update, but the Legislative Committee of the Oklahoma Airport Operators Association has been revived. Very pleased about that, somewhat of an outgrowth from their annual meeting, in which my remarks at that meeting focused specifically on this and the need for an engaged Airport Managers Association insofar as driving public policy related to airports and aviation, and I'll touch upon that a little bit more in the legislative update. In the last item, something of course I've reported upon to you many times, this has to do with House Bill 2118, the bill concerning military training airspace and protecting that. Legislation like no other state in the country right now. There will be a ceremonial bill signing with respect to that bill on July the 29th. Any questions?
Where will that be?
I think that it will be in the Blue Room. Blue Room at the Capitol.
Okay.
Questions, other questions?
Questions, comments? Item 7.
As we've done on many occasions, we haven't been there the last 2 years. We're trying to go back to the National Business Aviation Association Annual Convention and Trade Show. I know that some of you certainly know that this is the largest aviation trade show under a roof in North America, usually with the attendance between 25 and 30,000. That will be at the end of October, and we're trying to return in somewhat of a big way with a 20 by 20 or a 30 by 30 booth. I would ask for your permission to partner with Commerce and several other cities as well as private companies to put our booth at the NBAA Convention and Trade Show.
Questions or comments?
So the amount's $5,000 for that?
Up to 5,000, yes.
Okay. I move for approval of 5,000.
Second.
Jane, call the roll, please.
Vice Chair Amos.
Aye.
Secretary Putnam.
Aye.
Commissioner Hunter.
Aye.
Commissioner Ray.
Aye.
Commissioner Ritz.
Aye.
Commissioner Conway.
Aye.
Great. Item 8, the legislative update. Vic?
Yes, believe it or not, Commissioners, I know it just seems like we got finished with the 2019 legislative session, which was rather eventful, particularly with the military training airspace issue and garnering some success in that regard. But over the years, we've talked about many times the fact that we're going to be woefully short over the next 20 years insofar as funding the needs at our airport system. We estimate the needs through our various planning documents, the NIPIAS needs report, et cetera, at about $1.8 billion. The identified revenue sources will provide about $1 billion. We've explored ways to try to increase the revenues here stateside. We, of course, are encouraging our congressional delegation to let's make more investment in through the Airport Improvement Program, and there has been, happy about this, has been some supplemental investments over the last couple of years. Unfortunately, we have not fared very well in that regard, but we hope that that will improve over the next several years as if the appropriators come through, we'll continue to get an additional $500 million to authorization of $1 billion, but it'll probably be more around $500 million. But the issue is we need more funding. We need to step up funding. And at the OAOA annual, I pointed out that in the state of Florida, while the FAA in FY18 invested $100 million in Florida's close to 100 airports, about 20 commercial airports, the state of Florida invested $247 million. And pretty much down in the state of Florida, nothing happens with respect to airports and aviation policy without the Florida Airports Council being behind it. The only way we will ever get additional funding in this state, I'm convinced, is if it's a grassroots effort and if we have a very viable effort along with our effort from our Airport Operators Association. So I asked them, I don't expect, I am comparing an apple and an orange, but when you consider what we put in now, which is roughly $3 to $4 million a year, we are heavily dependent. 90% of our funding comes from the federal government, somewhere between 40 and 50 million in our airport system. We've got to increase what the state is doing, and hopefully over time local governments can even increase what they are doing as the airport sponsor. I don't expect the floor to resolve, but I hope that we can get something better. I think what we're looking at is obviously first item of business is the cap on our aircraft excise tax, our largest source of revenue. We made that effort last year. We'll make it again. That cap needs to be repealed. It wasn't in place until FY 2016, and it has impacted us. In 2 of the 3 years that it's been in effect, it has taken money that's been paid by aircraft owners and pilots, users of the system, and put it into the general fund. This year it was $132,000. Back in 2017, it was right around $800,000. And it actually would have taken some money in 2016, FY 16, but for the fact that it didn't go into effect until November the 1st. So that's our first order of business, to repeal that cap as we have been attempting to do. But we're going to have to do something else. And as Commissioner Hunter, who's good with numbers, has pointed out to me several times, our businesses on our 440 airports pay in approximately $330 million to the general fund. Aeronautics doesn't get 1 penny of that to invest into aviation infrastructure across the state. Think we ought to be probably getting something along that line, and that's probably the best way we're going to get an additional investment from the state. We can expend a lot of political capital. We've had the fight and the debate over aviation aircraft fuel tax. It really doesn't make a lot of sense because it just doesn't do much for us. And it's a major fight, primarily with the commercial airlines, but it just doesn't make the sense to expend that political capital. I think more along the line, something we did about 10 years ago, some of you might remember it, called the Airport Modernization Program, in which we outlined the needs of our airport system, several things, goals, things we could do with money that we were requesting from the legislature, such as whether it was pavement improvements or lighting, et cetera. Hangars was a part of that. This time, something more along the line of, we spend a lot of time, we do, the FAA does, and local airports do, with planning documents. Provide to us, please, an additional investment. We can demonstrate to you the need. I just gave you the money, the money figures, but we can demonstrate the need at our airports, and we can show you things that are not happening right now because we just simply don't have the funding. And I don't want to use this example, but I will, because they should be given an attaboy because they've done remarkably, but only with investment by the state to address the problem. We had the worst bridges in the world about 10 years ago. We now have, I don't know, the 8th worst bridges or something like that. We've come remarkably up because of the investment by the state that the legislature stepped forward with general appropriation to make sure that we took care of that really critical issue. We have similar issues in our airport system. We need an additional investment, but I'm convinced that won't happen without a grassroots effort, which OAOA is plugged into. So I'm very happy that they have accepted the challenge. They have stepped up. They have revitalized their legislative committee. They've called out of retirement, if you will, Walt Strong to head that up and co-chair it with Drew Saffel, the airport manager over at Muskogee, who was part of Governor Stitt's transition team, along with Commissioner Hunter, that looked at airports. And I've asked them four things, four goals. Grassroots. Get your local legislators, your local leaders, your mayor, your city manager out to your airport. Show them who's using the airport. Show them the businesses that are on the airport, aviation businesses that are on the airport, that affect the local economy, that have an impact. Revitalize the legislative committee. They've done that. more closely align yourself with the Oklahoma Municipal League. After all, airports are owned by municipalities, and the OML has swings a pretty good bat at the Capitol. They have a strong representation over there. They occasionally lose one, but they win more than they lose. It only makes sense that they're closely aligned with the OML and utilize the OML in things that we may want to see come to pass and become law. And then try, on at least an every other year basis, to utilize the OAOA annual convention and meeting to get legislators there, to influence the public policymakers, to bring them to the meeting, have a reception or have some kind of breakfast. And even in the years when they're not going to have the annual meeting in Oklahoma City, to have at least a breakfast or a reception during the session for the lawmakers. So they are willing to work all those things. I'm very, very pleased by that. And they're trying to use as a model, which I think is a very successful one, the model of the American Association of Airport Executives, United States Contract Tower Association Policy Board, and how that really does effectively drive public policy. And a lot of that is based upon repetition, communication, emails, and spoon-serving the members of that association and policy board to make sure that we will communicate with our delegation. We're talking about the same thing here. It's not rocket science. It's not that hard, and I think it can be done, and without it, I don't think we'll ever get an additional state investment in our airport system. I do not think we can get there alone. So that would conclude my report in that regard, and if there are any questions, I'm certainly happy to entertain those.
Vic, out of the $330 million annually, is there any consideration for something like 10% going to airfields? 1/10 of the revenue taken from them?
That's 1/10 or 20 million, or, I mean, we're certainly going to talk about that. We have talked about that in trying to get our cap repealed. The fact that this money goes to the general fund, it is coming from aviation, it is coming off of airports, and right now we're not getting any of that. You all know, what we get is the statutorily directed revenues from our non-appropriated sources: aircraft excise tax, aircraft registration fees, and aircraft fuel tax. That averages between $5 and $6 million a year. So that's going to be our selling point, Commissioner. The fact that that's not happening, we're not getting any of that, and we think we ought to get a little bit of that.
Of course, I have the fantasy that your fuel tax for buying for road gasoline is used on roads. And it's
Yeah, that doesn't happen, yeah. But the legislature's made up for that, They have, through the appropriation process.
Okay.
Has any thought been given to running a series of educational seminars during OAOA so that we can teach those airports to become self-sufficient profit centers? Get them off government dependence?
I assume you may be talking about the annual meeting or just
Yes.
through the course of the year. Such workshops or sessions or seminars are run because that is one of the grant assurances from FAA and OAC to be self-sustaining. To, if you can make them profit, great, but at the very least be self-sustaining, pay for yourself. And I think that's always an effort, an ongoing effort. Certainly something that could probably be stepped up. And
If they can do that, they can pay for their own improvements if they'll just run it like a business.
yeah, I've talked about that. That's a great goal. I don't think that them to pay for their infrastructure requirements and needs too. It's a difficult one. I don't think cities can do that.
I pay for mine, and
I understand you do.
pay taxes.
You have a little different
for
market.
Real estate and
Yep, I understand
things
that you
those
do.
airports don't have to pay.
Of course, you enjoy not being subject to those assurances too, but I
Shouldn't be. I take
if,
nothing.
I really, philosophically, you and I are not in the same place on this. I think that the national air transportation system is a national asset, just as our airport system is a state asset, and both of them merit and warrant public investment.
My airport's a state asset as well.
I don't argue
But you
that, but
contribute
you're
nothing to it.
you're a private. Yeah, and I applaud what you do.
Next
If
item.
I can be profitable, they can be profitable.
I think they could certainly be moved towards self-sustainment. Further questions?
Thank you.
Okay.
Item 9, the OML conference. Sandra?
Good morning, Commissioners. How are you?
Good morning.
The Aeronautics Commission is going to be attending the Oklahoma Municipal League Conference in Tulsa. It is a $250 fee for our exhibit booth there, and we've had many years of success there. We always take a person from our airports division to talk to communities about their airports, and staff would recommend approval of a $250 fee for our exhibit booth.
Question. Is it in Tulsa or Oklahoma City?
It's in Tulsa. Whoever made that slide should be reprimanded. Terrible.
Get- Call the roll.
Sorry about that, Commissioners.
Vice Chair Amos.
Aye.
Secretary Putnam.
Aye.
Commissioner Hunter.
Aye.
Commissioner Ray.
Aye.
Commissioner Ritz.
Aye.
Commissioner Conway.
Aye.
It'll be in Oklahoma City next year.
Great, thank you.
Sandra's always thinking ahead.
That's right. Item 10, Grayson, the UAS cluster conference.
Commissioners, the UAS Cluster Initiative Conference, this is something we've done in years past. It's basically an opportunity for a lot of the UAS industry to get together and discuss the current regulations, way to grow the business. The one item this year is that there is a drone port seminar that's going on, kind of something new that's being brought to the table. And that is something that several of our airports in the state of Oklahoma are looking to participate in with potential grant opportunities from some non-traditional grant sources to become drone ports. As drones start integrating into the national airspace system, we have to figure out how does that manned and unmanned interaction play together in the same airspace nicely. And so the drone port initiative is one of those potential initiatives to see how that works out and make some of these airports, because as we know, right now, drones 55 pounds and under, not going to be operating from airports. But as drones get bigger, they will be operating from traditional aviation surfaces, fixed wing type aircraft. And so that's one of the high points that this conference will look at. And Commission's considering an exhibit booth and a sponsorship, $1,500 to join the other Oklahoma entities that are going to be going to the event in Salina, Kansas, August 21st and 22nd. Staff recommends approval, and I'll stand for any questions.
Grayson, is this, has the commission gone to this
Yes.
conference before?
Yes, we've gone for a couple of years now.
Okay.
And it alternates between Kansas and Oklahoma. So it's an initiative of the Small Business Administration that had given a grant to an entity to run this cluster program for UAS for Kansas and Oklahoma. And because it covers two states, they alternate back and forth between Kansas and Oklahoma.
Okay.
Last year, it was in Broken Arrow up in Tulsa.
Other groups?
So there are several other Oklahoma entities that are going. ACES, which we all know ACES. ACES is going. The Oklahoma City Chamber is going. Several of the other the tribes are interested and they are going. But basically, we're trying to bring the airport, the drone port contingent with us to this event to allow those airports to interact with other drone port network airports. And I know Sandra went to AUVSI this spring, and that was a big initiative there, is this drone port. How do we get centers, kind of center of excellence, I know it's a term we use a lot, but a center of excellence for drones in our various communities, kind of a hub to go repair, upgrade, operate, learn. How do we get those in our communities as this industry comes alive right before our eyes?
Second.
Call the roll.
Vice Chair Amos.
Aye.
Secretary Putnam.
Aye.
Commissioner Hunter.
Aye.
Commissioner Ray.
Aye.
Commissioner Ritz.
Aye.
Commissioner Conway.
Aye.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thanks, Grayson. Item 11, the financial report. Jane?
Good morning, Commissioners.
In your packet behind the item number 11 are the financial statistics for the final FY19. As of June 30th, the commission had an ending cash balance of, excuse me, $4.7 million with encumbrances of $3.5 million, leaving an unencumbered balance of $1,235,088. And then, as you can see, for the remainder of FY19, expected revenues that will roll into FY20 total $445,726. The amount of the remaining expenditures for FY19 for the airport construction program that will ultimately roll into 20 are expected to be about $2.7 million. Our total expenditures have been just over $6.7 million. On the second page is the revenues. And for April, the statutory revenues total deposit was $201,036. May was $1,562,220, and then June dropped way back down to $108,559. And you can see from the graph how it can go up and down. But we really liked May. It was a good month. The statutory revenues deposited for the fiscal year from July 1st through June 30th total $4,494,256, which was pretty close to the same thing as last year, which was $4,335,964 for the same time frame. As I mentioned before, we track deposited numbers on the reports we give you just because that shows how much cash is actually there. But the legislature, when they look at our cap and that kind of stuff, they look at the collected numbers, which I could provide any of those, but they're a month off is what it is for the fiscal year. And that may be what Director Byrd was looking at when he told you 800 million loss for the 800,000, I'm sorry. It was actually $1,132,781 is what we exceeded the cap in FY17, and then 18 we were okay on it, and then this one was just barely over. The third page shows just comparisons, average comparisons. And we have just submitted our FY 2020 budget, which the year begins July 1st and goes through June 30th. So on page 4, you will see the projected budget that was submitted to the Office of Management and Enterprise Services for approval. As of yet, I have not received that approval, but I was told a week ago that it'll be in a couple days, so I'm expecting it any time. As the report shows, we anticipate a total of $9,726,922 in revenues, and the total projected expenses are $10,262,361. And I know the math doesn't quite add up there as far as what we're planning on spending compared to what we're planning on getting, but we do have a balance from this year in cash. And on that report, I had put that number in on June 18th instead of June 30th. So the actual June 30th number is $4,734,500. So it's not off much, but it is just a little bit to report up through June 30th. And so that money will roll forward, so we will have enough money to cover what we're expecting to spend. So that concludes my report, unless you have any questions for me.
Thank you,
Yep.
Jane.
Thank you.
Okay, item 12. Grayson?
Director Byrd and I went to the 2019 Central Service Area Central Service Area Regional Airspace Council. That's a mouthful. Up in Tulsa, Oklahoma. This is an annual meeting where DoD and FAA and other federal entities get together to talk about all things airspace. Last year was in Minnesota. We attended via conference call. This year, since it was in Tulsa, we decided to go participate in person. Plus the fact that we had the really good news about House Bill 2118 and the kind of tip of the iceberg that Oklahoma is being in terms of protecting our military training airspace. This is the central service area for the FAA, so it's about 15 to 20 states here in the Central Plains, basically, as far east as Arkansas, Missouri, as far west as Colorado, all the way up to North Dakota, down to Texas, so on and so forth. And really some good information. The first day was exclusively DOD. We were invited there to share the news about 2118, and not just how the Oklahoma bases and the Oklahoma entities can help, but how can other states and other organizations in those states try and do what we've done with 2118. It really is Chairman Cooper with the Strategic Military Planning Commission and ourselves, we are sharing the good news of what occurred in House Bill 2118 and the protections that we've gotten, and what we really think is a great resource and a great regulatory framework. And so everybody's very happy to hear. I know Secretary of Military Veterans Affairs Ben Robinson was there for a little bit. It really was a good meeting. Everybody from the DOD are very appreciative of what the state of Oklahoma is doing to protect our military airspace, and we got a lot of good head nods and a lot of good conversations that other states are going to be trying something very similar in the future. So it's a good thing for our military, it's a good thing for airspace, and it's a good thing for the DOD in general. With that being said, I'll stand for any questions.
Questions? Guess we moved to item 12, Grayson. Or 13, rather.
Item 13, Commissioners, kind of along this same line, the Wind Energy Development Act. There were some requirements within that Wind Energy Development Act upon the Commission. We've talked about those, that now Wind Energy has to submit information to the Commission. 7460-1s, that's the initial submittals. They have to submit their determination of no hazard. We have to collect the DoD mission compatibility certification forms to show that everybody is going through the federal process. We'll remember what House Bill 2118, it basically forces Wind Energy to go and complete and get a good thumbs up from both the FAA, federal process, airspace process, but also the DoD airspace, the clearinghouse process that we know it as commonly. And so we collect that information to make sure that everybody is going through that. And within the bill, there's a little piece that requires the Aeronautics Commission shall prescribe the submittal requirements for the 7460-1 form. That's what the law requires. And so that is our responsibility for rules. Most of the requirements within House Bill 2118 will be within the Corporation Commission's rules, like we've reported to you in the past. We've worked hand in hand with them to do those administrative rules, both the emergency and the permanent rule process over in the Corporation Commissions, but this little piece will be within the Aeronautics Commissions. How do we want these wind energy companies submitting stuff to us? And so today we're requesting simply the authorization to move forward with the emergency rule process for that little piece. How do we want wind energy submitting the information, the 7460-1 information that they submit to the FAA? How do we want them submitting that to us? This shouldn't be a long, laborious process. It should be fairly simple, and we'll continue kind of the same time with the Corporation Commission's process for their emergency rules that are going to redo the main administrative rules that govern the Wind Energy Development Act. So staff's requesting the process to move forward. Obviously, we will come before you to approve any draft emergency rules that we come up with and agree upon at a future meeting. But this is just to simply start the process, to kick the process off. I'll stand for any questions and anything else that may need to be said.
I'll move to approve.
Second.
Call the roll, please, Jane.
Vice Chair Amos.
Aye.
Secretary Putnam.
Aye.
Commissioner Hunter.
Aye.
Commissioner Ray.
Aye.
Commissioner Ritz.
Aye.
Commissioner Conley.
Aye.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Item 14, the Airport Construction Grant Program, Grayson.
Yes,
Consent
sir.
docket, right?
We'll be going through all of these individually. I know we have some people here, I think, from each community that wanted to say a few words, give you a few thanks, but we will be going through it quickly. The first project on the list is one at Ardmore Municipal Airport. You can see it up there on the screen. The top left piece, the little turquoise blue piece, is what we're doing with this particular project. It's phase 2 of the connector taxiway to get basically out to the end of that primary runway. Total project cost, a little over 3.7, or a little bit over $4.2 million. This is one of those FAA discretionary projects that we talk about on a regular basis. Staff's gonna be making the 5%, helping the sponsor out with half their required local match to the FAA grant, so 5%. Sponsor will put forward 5%, and FAA will be putting forward 90%. I think we have somebody here from the airport that might want to say a few things.
Chase Tyndall, Manager Airport Operations over Ardmore Municipal Airport. And this project is going to help us eliminate a potential hotspot on our airport. It's going to improve the safety and efficiency of our facility. I'd like to thank you for your consideration on the project. If you have any questions for me or about the project, I'd be happy to answer anything.
How much traffic do you all get down there as a result of the runway extension several years ago? You get some big stuff in there still?
Yeah. King Aerospace, one of our MRO facilities, they just signed a contract with Boeing about 6 months ago. So they're one of the primary paint and refinishing centers for the BBJs.
Nice.
I think they had another aircraft in there last year, didn't they, Chase?
It showed up Monday.
Oh, again? Would be Air Force Two?
Yeah.
What was it?
Air Force Two. They're
7.5?
yes.
Very cool.
Staff recommends approval. I'll answer any questions if need be.
Need a motion?
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Vice Chair Amos.
Aye.
Secretary Putnam.
Aye.
Commissioner Hunter.
Aye.
Commissioner Ray.
Aye.
Commissioner Ritz.
Aye.
Commissioner Conway.
Aye.
Great. Item D.
Item B is a project at Atoka Municipal Airport. This is a piece of a bigger project. The bigger projects, both the rehab of the pavement, but also the electrical system, OAC. The project before you today is for the approval of the electrical system, installing new LED runway lights. This is the final phase of the runway widening to meet standards. It was a 50 or just shy of 50-foot wide runway. Standard is 60 foot. They did not have the money several years ago when they widened the runway to go in and redo the electrical. So this is why the project was added into the ACP. We're putting in runway lights and PAPIs. Total project cost a little over $240,000. This will be a 95-5 split between the commission and the local entity. This is a great airport. It sits in a hole in southeast Oklahoma between McAllister and Durant and Ada. It's about 30 miles from each one of those airports. So when we look at system planning, that's we call that a hole, and it's an airport that's very vital to that community. And I think we have somebody here from the city for Atoka if they want to come forward.
Vice Chairman and Commissioners, I'm Jane Hughes, the very, very new city manager. So take that to heart. We are, I think, a vital airport to the area. We do definitely need these improvements to meet FAA requirements, but also just to update the lighting, especially for the airport itself and for our pilots that come in. We have about 2 to 3 airplanes a day, small airline companies that come in. I do want to say, since the drone topic did come up, that I am hopeful that Atoka becomes a little more known on the map as one of the drone test areas. I'm working with the Choctaw Nation to help move that along. So although it is new to me, I am very anxious to get involved in that. So I appreciate everything that you're doing. I will answer any questions if you have any. Maybe I'll answer them.
Madam City Manager, we like your aviation-minded speaker, too.
Yes, he's very aviation-minded. And so is our mayor. He's very, very prominent in the aviation world as far as our area. So he is pushing the drone test area along with the Choctaw Nation. So thank you.
We used to run the rock quarry at Stringtown, my
Oh,
family
okay.
did. And we had a rock crusher down one time. And I had to go chase a bearing in Atlanta that weighed about 300 pounds, was about this big. And I landed at Atoka at midnight with pickup truck lights.
Yes.
So we need these lights.
Well, I mean,
Well,
And
I
I'm
guess
not-
that'll.
I'm not gonna say that was the only time that happened.
Yeah. That
Thank
was
you
in
all.
about 1985.
Yes. Thank you.
That about takes care of that.
That's right.
Staff recommends approval. I'll stand for any questions.
I move for approval.
Call the roll, Jane?
Vice Chair Amos.
Aye.
Secretary Putnam.
Aye.
Commissioner Hunter.
Aye.
Commissioner Ray.
Aye.
Commissioner Ritz.
Aye.
Commissioner Conway.
Aye.
Great. Item C?
Item C is a project at the Chandler Regional Airport. Consists of constructing a parallel taxiway to the 4,000-foot runway. This is a runway that's got a significant hump in it, meaning you can't see end to end, and because of their traffic and the jet traffic that they have, the insurance company in Chandler has a couple of jets based at the airport. It was necessary in terms of safety and efficiency and standards that they needed a parallel taxiway to ensure that there would be limited back taxiing on the runway while operations were ongoing. Total project cost, a little over $3.2 million. This is, again, like Ardmore's, it's a discretionary project. Commission's providing 5% or half the local match. FAA is providing 90%. And I believe we have somebody here from the city. They want to say a few words?
Yeah, I'm Gene Emmel, I'm the mayor, and if you want the job, you can move to Chandler and have it. It's a high-paying position. I'm just here to say thank you. You know, we appreciate everything you do for us in the past, present, and maybe in the future. And I'm the third choice to get here. Okay, the city manager had a doctor's appointment, couldn't get out of it because the next one would have been in October. I think you know Rick Gladden. He had a death in the family, so he couldn't make it. So I'm in the really short straw, okay? But we're here just to say thank you. Any support you can give us, we much appreciate it, okay? And I probably can't answer any questions, but give them to me. Oh, you're so nice.
Yes. Thank you. I need a
Okay.
motion.
Second.
Second. Call the roll.
Vice Chair Amos.
Aye.
Secretary Putnam.
Aye.
Commissioner Hunter.
Aye.
Commissioner Ray.
Aye.
Commissioner Ritz.
Aye.
Commissioner Conway.
Aye.
Great.
Grayson, let me, kind of unique. Chandler have one or two base jets?
2 jets and I believe a King Air on top of that.
Back actions, not good.
Not,
Yeah.
I hear that. I heard that.
It's one of those few, Vic, we always get the question, well, a jet-capable airport's a 5,000-foot runway, but it helps to be the insurance company that flies the jets into a 4,000-foot runway.
Somehow they can change their terms of their policy.
Yeah, I wonder how.
Yeah, Mr. Walking Stick.
Anyway,
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Item D for Jones Regional.
this is a project at the R.L. Jones Airport, Riverside, up in Tulsa. This is a rehabilitation of their secondary runway, their parallel runway, north-south. A couple of years ago, we did the primary runway. We're just kind of, we're about probably 4 or 5 years from a 15-year major rehab of that airport's pavement electrical systems. We are helping the airport significantly on this one. We are using some innovative funding proposals. We are transferring some money in. I don't ever like to gig my FAA brethren, but they have some discretionary rules, and we're widening the crosswind because we plan to do that anyway in 5 years to meet standards. But we're unable to use discretionary money on the 200-foot of widening that would occur within the safety area of that runway to help efficiencies. That would save us about 3 weeks of downtime in 5 years when we have to come back and widen the whole thing to meet standards. We just felt that out of the interest of common sense and efficiency, we should go ahead and do that now while both runways are going to be closed down anyway for the rehab of this secondary. So we're helping the airport out, wanted to transfer some money there to help that. I understand FAA has their discretionary rules, and I respect those, even sometimes they don't make a whole lot of sense in terms of constructability. So anyway, total project, a little over $2.5 million. Again, this is one of those discretionary projects. Commission's making 5%, half the local match, 90% coming from FAA, although we are switching a little bit of the money, the color of the money, from discretionary to NPE based on that transfer. I believe we have somebody here from the trust that might want to say a few words.
Good morning. I'm with the Tulsa Airports Improvement Trust, Director Engineering and Facilities, and my name is Frank Relja. Slight history, I don't think Grayson was around then. The last time this runway had any major work performed on it was in '93. Back then, I was a little bit younger, and I was with a consulting firm who was doing the overlaying project of that runway. At that time, the entire airport was overlaid with 3 to 4 inches of asphalt. Since then, in 2015, we did the major north-south runway, taxiway to the major runway. 17, we overlaid, rehabilitated the main runway. This year, hopefully, we will go ahead and rehabilitate the secondary runway. And with Grayson's help, I do appreciate it. We are going to be able to widen crosswind runway in the safety area of the short runway. FAA also says that you already have 2 runways, you don't need the 3rd runway. Part of what Grayson was talking about. The thing that they don't look at is, correct me if I'm wrong, this is the busiest airport in Oklahoma. Yes. The majority of that traffic are flight schools. It's kind of hard to learn how to land on a crosswind runway in crosswind conditions if the winds are primarily out of the north-south and you don't have a crosswind runway to practice on. So with your help, we do appreciate that. We can get those pilots to get the experience that they need. And on behalf of Tulsa Airports Improvement Trust, I do appreciate your help. Any questions, I'll be happy to try to answer. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Need a motion?
Second.
Great. Call the roll, please.
Vice Chair Amos,
Aye.
Secretary Putnam,
Aye.
Commissioner Hunter, Commissioner Ray,
Aye.
Commissioner Ritz,
Aye.
Commissioner Conway.
Aye.
And as Frank was saying, this is the state's busiest airport. And actually, it was, I think, in the top 15 or 20 at one time in the busiest airports in the nation back in the 2005, 6, 7 timeframe. It's slowly climbing back up there after we've had some of the great recessions. But these kinds of airports, this airport, Wiley Post, they are the primary relievers for our 2 great metropolitan areas. And the fact that FAA says, well, they don't need a crosswind runway or they don't need a 3rd runway, it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I understand from their point, they're trying to constrict budgets, but they're not looking at it from a use standpoint. Who uses those runways? They're looking at it from a very high level, just mathematics, financial capability. And so not everybody needs a 2nd runway. Not everybody needs a crosswind runway. But our busier airports, our more major airports, they do need those extra runways to help alleviate some of the congestion at those airports. So, and E, if we can move on to E.
Yep.
E is a project at Wiley Post. This is the second to last project of a major electrical rehabilitation that's been going on for, Chris, me correct if I'm wrong here, I think maybe 10 years now. We have been updating all the electrical systems on the airport to LED from incandescent, and I think this is the second to last project that we have to do in terms of that particular project. It's a little over $580,000 total project cost. This is not involving discretionary money, but it is NPE and state apportionment, and the commission's making half the local match, or 5%. So I think we have somebody here from the airport want to say a few words.
Good morning, Commissioners. Christy Slater, I'm the General Aviation Manager for the Oklahoma City Department of Airports. I just want to thank you for the continued support of Wiley Post. This has, like Grayson said, been a 10-year venture for us to update this lighting, but she's a pretty girl. She's a lot of fun, and we've had a lot of pilots compliment us on these upgrades, and I just really appreciate your support. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them. Thank you.
Thanks, Christie. Need a motion?
I move for approval.
Second.
Call the roll.
Vice Chair Amos.
Aye.
Secretary Putnam.
Aye.
Commissioner Hunter.
Aye.
Commissioner Ray.
Aye.
Commissioner Ritz.
Aye.
Commissioner Conway.
Aye.
Great, thank you. Moving along to item 15, Grayson.
Item 15, this is a project we've discussed going back to the January meeting, if we can remember. The unclassified airports in the latest FAA reauthorization bill are getting an influx of NPE and non-primary entitlement funding. They are getting $300,000, $150 this year, $150 next year, to basically just do basic maintenance, to just kick the can down the road a little bit, as we'd like to call it. It's not for a major upgrade, not for a major rehab, but just some bare bones and basic maintenance. At the end of the day, what we're looking at here is just a crack seal and a seal coat at this airport. What we're proposing to you today is kind of the whole kit and caboodle. We are moving forward with accepting a grant offer from FAA based on estimates. And the reason for that is we don't, based on the FAA bill coming out kind of late, not having this in the plan, we don't have design done, we don't have engineering plans to put on the street for bids, and so FAA is willing to give us the grant based on estimates, just like all the other unclassified airports in the state and all the other unclassified airports around the country. They are working with us and being very generous in what they're allowing us to do here to try and stretch this limited amount of funding that Congress has given these airports as far as it can go. I will tell you that this is one of two airports that we were considering, Fountainhead and Lake Texoma. And we believe Fountainhead is not far enough along in its deterioration cycle of the pavement that it can accept a seal coat and a crack seal for a length of time to get us some life out of the pavement. Lake Texoma, we don't believe that same thing, and that's why we don't see Lake Texoma on the agenda here today, is we believe that pavement is too far gone, and spending this federal resource would not be a wise investment based on the pavement deterioration and the conditions there of the pavement. So staff is recommending approval, not only to go forward with the design cost that's there in the agenda item, but also with accepting an FAA grant offer for the $333,334, which is to soak up all the money that Congress has allotted this airport. And you'll see in a future commission meeting a similar item for Carlton Landing Arrowhead, which we are doing as well. So I'll stand for any questions, but staff recommends for approval.
Is Fountainhead the North Lake airport, I mean?
Yes, it's on the northwest side of Eufaula, Lake Eufaula.
It's got mixed up, because the new one's renamed Carlton.
New one's renamed Carlton Landing. That's on the south side of the lake.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me note something, commissioners, that our co-owner, co-sponsor of this airport with us, we are by statute, the statutory sponsor, if you will. We have primary jurisdiction. But the co-owner, co-sponsor is the Department of Tourism. And we have visited at length with new executive director, Jerry Winchester, regarding this, as well as Lake Texoma and Carlton Landing Arrowhead as well. And we're in agreement on all those. He is some of you, I think, know him. He is a pilot, has a couple of aircraft, and so he was very easy to talk to. And we looked at Texoma pretty, I'd say, thoroughly. We didn't make that decision lightly to pass up that money, but it's the prudent thing to do. It's the right thing and responsible thing to do.
Questions? Need a motion?
I move for approval of the amount listed.
Second.
Call the roll, please, Jane.
Vice Chair Amos.
Aye.
Secretary Putnam.
Aye.
Commissioner Hunter.
Aye.
Commissioner Ray.
Aye.
Commissioner Ritz.
Aye.
Commissioner Conway.
Aye.
Item 16, please.
Item 16 is contingent upon an FAA offer accepting a grant for the update of the system plan. As I think we've given presentations to you all in the past, the system plan is the long-term guiding document for the state's airport, the state's public airport system. It has not been redone since 1999, and kind of along the lines of our economic impact study, it is time to update that and bring it into the 21st century to give us a vision for the next 20 years of what are the needs of the system currently, what are they going to be moving forward, what are some ways that we can look at some efficiencies to help airports run their jobs or do their job a little bit better, along the lines of what you were saying there, Commissioner, earlier. There's a lot of great things to use technology, to use GIS, to use database type stuff to help these airport managers do their jobs more efficiently, where they should and shouldn't be mowing, what trees do they need to cut down, not cut down, what areas of property they need to be looking at if people are building in them, so on and so forth, to ensure that our dollars are being used as efficiently as possible, and to ensure that the airports are trying to be as self-sustaining as possible. There's also, the system plan will look at, do we have too many airports? Do we not have enough? Is there an area where you could combine a couple airports into one really good airport? The system plan is really to take a look at what are the needs of the state's air transportation system and how does that fit into the role of the national air transportation system. And that's really what this is for. This is kind of a visioning, dreaming, long-term goal process for the state's airport system, and understanding that we probably do have a few too many airports in the system, given how many unclassified airports that we have right now. Are there some airports that, this airport's got 6 aircraft, that airport's got 8 aircraft, and that airport's got 10 aircraft, and they're all within about 35 miles of each other? Would it not make more sense to go ahead and put one airport in the middle of all those, have 25 airplanes there, and have a really good airport that can provide some really good services? And so that's what this is all about. This is a strategic plan for the airport system. And obviously, we're looking at an FAA grant to fund that. So staff recommends approval of the agenda item, but I'll stand for any questions or comments or anything like that.
I move for approval.
Call the roll, please.
Vice Chair Amos.
Aye.
Secretary Putnam.
Aye.
Commissioner Hunter.
Aye.
Commissioner Ray.
Aye.
Commissioner Ritz.
Aye.
Commissioner Conley.
Aye.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Commissioners.
Tracy. Okay, item 17. Adam.
Good morning, Commissioners. So this is definitely a topic that we'll dive into next month more in depth, but I wanted to give you an overview this morning. Aviation education, as we all know, is very important to the success and the longevity of the aviation and aerospace industry. Today, I want to give you a brief overview of the aviation education program as we go into the next fiscal year. It should be no surprise that with Sandra's social media blasts and coverage of the program, that it's soaring to new heights, no pun intended. We have a record number of applicants this year with 46. Last year, we had 30 total applicants. 18 of those applicants this year were first-time applicants, first time applying for the grant. The total cost of all these programs is $3,493 and $221. The total request from OAC is $602,971. These programs have a direct impact on 321,539 students. The staff, we want to thank you for the support of this program, and I'll stand for any questions.
I'm confused. How many students again?
It is 321,539 students.
Goodness.
And certainly we'll get into it in very detail next month.
We definitely
Yes.
will.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
That's it. Thanks, Adam. Grayson, you're back up, sir. Item 18.
Time for some fun. The EAA Air Show, Air Venture Oshkosh, is upon us. Coming up less than 2 weeks to go. Oklahoma, as we've done for I think almost a decade now, will have a great presence there at the show. Several community partners, Ardmore, Ada, Enid, Weatherford, us, OG&E, Commerce, I'm sure forgetting several entities, but we will be going there in our usual booth space, usual booth time. This year, an even more focused effort on going out and meeting companies and meeting prospects. We have a lot of the economic development talent from all these communities and from OG&E and the Department of Commerce and ACES that are going to be going out and making company visits. Did want to have some good news. We have some some potentials from last year we're following up on that are starting to look a little bit better and starting to look like we might have some kind of an opportunity there to move a company to Oklahoma. I'm sure you'll hear about that news once it happens, if it happens. But that's really the first part of why we go to Oshkosh is the economic development trip. The second part is just from a tourism standpoint. We are there to plant the Oklahoma flag in the ground, to get people to come back to Oklahoma, and really leading up to the big Saturday event with the Senator Inhofe lunch, when we have a lunch for Senator Inhofe, CEO Jack Pelton of EAA, as well as all of our Oklahoma friends and companies that we are calling on there. As you can see here, the invite for anybody in the audience that's going to Oshkosh or has friends going to Oshkosh or any commissioners that are going to Oshkosh, would encourage you to come, stop by the booth in Hangar C, or please come to the lunch. If you don't have an invite or you can't see it up here on the screen, stop by with Sandra after the meeting and give her your email, and we'd be glad to send you an invite if you're headed up to Oshkosh. It's on Saturday at noon over in the lake area on your way to the museum. So great time. Look forward to Oshkosh, and I'll stand for any questions.
I guess we already approved money to help pay for
Yes,
that, right?
yes, that was several months ago.
Yeah.
How many y'all are going?
Just Vic and I and Adam. Yeah, Adam's going. Adam will be the first half of the week. Vic and I will be the last half of the week.
Okay.
So, when are you, Commissioner, I assume you're going? Are you going for
I'm
a full
going,
week?
yeah, I regret to say I have to fly back on Saturday. I
Oh.
really like the luncheon, I really enjoy it.
We'll save a plate of food for you.
Thank you. I'll pick it up in a couple months from now.
Yeah, yeah.
Great.
Thank
Thanks,
you,
Grayson.
Commissioners.
Item 19, the air show update or briefing. Sandra.
Well, Commissioners, you know that when I get up here, your duty is almost done. So we had a great time at the Star Spangled Salute Air Show. And there we have Commissioner Putnam and Mark Tarpley and Commissioner Putnam's bride. And congratulations, Commissioner, on behalf of the commission on your
Thank you.
on your new marriage. And it was a fantastic day. Adam, myself, and Grayson worked the day there with Director Byrd. And see this Northrop Grumman tent? About 5 hours later, it blew away. And we had Senator Rosino come with us. And this year I selected some photos for you commissioners to see. Some of you went to the air show. I know not all of you made it. But this year they had STEM City on, much from the urging of Director Byrd to the organizers of the air show. And STEM City this year, this is the children's area, which the Aeronautics Commission supports, and we're looking at maybe moving that support over to STEM City because they did an outstanding job getting
And we're
people out there.
moving the lost parents sign as well,
Yes.
away from our
I love
logo.
that. Lost parents. That's hilarious. Okay, next. So you can see that it was packed, and so there this is the Mustang Robotics team out there who we've helped with our aviation education programs before. I had a great time visiting with them. And so I just wanted to show you this. There's Robert Hensley and some colonel person. And there we go.
Sorry, Commissioner Putnam, but you just were demoted, I think.
But I wanted you to be able to see that. And also, in your packets, there is events coming up. Oklahoma Women in Aviation Day will be November 1st. We would really like for our commissioners to attend. Although it is in statute on December 9th, we have moved the date to November 1st because there will be 99s from across the United States and across the world that will be in Oklahoma City that weekend. It is their 90th anniversary. And so this year, Oklahoma Women in Aviation is proud to salute the 99s. And we are celebrating the life of Geraldine Cobb. And so this year, we have a fantastic lineup of speakers. And our keynote speaker is going to be Admiral Peggy Klein. Admiral Klein comes to us through Senator Rosino. She lives in Maryland, I think, and teaches at the Naval College there and is the Dean of Policy and Ethics. So then after that, we're going to have a panel because we want the people in the audience to engage with the panel. We have the president of the 99s who will be on our panel, a woman by the name of Teresa Camp. You probably know Teresa Commissioner Putnam. She is an engineer at Boeing and recently went to Africa and flew in a general aircraft all over, I know I just did a double thing there, but flew all over Africa, going from town to town, and so she has an amazing story to tell. And then Michelle Coppage from the FAA is also going to be on our panel. So it's going to be at the AAR hangar. We're very excited about it. Could still use some sponsorships. We really need your help because the AAR hangar is a 1920s hangar. Our salute is also, our theme is the golden age of aviation. So we're going to have some really neat static displays out there, and we hope that all the commissioners will come. There's lots of events. It's time to fly in Oklahoma. It's summer, and there's lots going on at Sundance as well that's in here. So we hope that everyone will go flying and use that Oklahoma airport system. I stand for any questions.
Well, I have a comment. Dr. Billy Putnam's working to get Ann Merrill Lindbergh reenactor to come here
Yes,
today.
she told me that.
Yeah.
And also, the Aero Caucus on the 26th, we're working with EAA to do a legislative ground school, which should be fun for the lawmakers, and they'll be taking first flights in general aviation aircrafts.
On the 26th of September.
Yes,
Right.
yes, on the morning of. And that will be at the Shawnee Airport. So we're excited to get them out there to see that beautiful new terminal.
What was the date of the Women in Aviation again?
November 1st, it's a Friday,
First, okay.
and I would love to have all of you out there.
Great.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
commissioners.
Item 21, concluding remarks. And we're light years ahead of our hard stop.
Hey.
Mr. Director, good
You
job.
must be pleased.
Yeah.
Commissioners, robust agenda, but comment quickly about, I've said something earlier, but it does seem today that aerospace seems to be the flavor of the day, flavor of the month. We've enjoyed, as we know, our economic impact study, 250% growth in that industry. But I really have to say a lot of it is we along working with the Department of Commerce and many other partners, we keep it in the public eye. We have events, we have things to keep a focus on aerospace. It's very important. The Women in Aviation, and when that thing started, that was kind of Sanders' pet project. I said, you can expend your political capital, not the commission so much, but, go forward. And it has become a raging success. Last year, I think we had over 400 in attendance. The first year at Wiley Post, where Christy Slater was very, very helpful to us in the Atlantic hangar, I think there were well over 100, more like 120 or something. And I think it's significant this year that we're celebrating Jerry Cobb because some of you might know her story. I think she was in the Air Force. She was also, though, there were also women who tried to be in that first group of astronauts, the Mercury astronauts. She was at the top of her class and outscored many of the men in various tests, if you will, including several counts with respect to our own Gordon Cooper, who was part of that first class. Of course, General Stafford was part of the second class. But there's an interesting there's some interesting letters, but I think ultimately, believe it or not, I think Vice President Johnson at the time we just couldn't have a woman astronaut. Just look how things have changed, thank God. And that's what we're celebrating with Women in Aviation Day. And indeed, the title of the new program to go take us back to the moon and to Mars is Artemis, who was, of course, the sister of Apollo in ancient Roman mythology. Probably you don't look very interested in that. That was my major in undergraduate, and that's why I went to law school. Okay, so I'll stand for any, and I know how Commissioner Hunter feels about lawyers, so I'll stand for any questions or any comments about our agenda. Okay.
Great agenda. Thanks, Victor. So our next meeting is going to be 7 August, and the education, what is it? Yep. So hopefully you all can come to that. Any new business? We're adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.